Human Outpost 7 stood at the edge of a distant star system. It was small and quiet, surrounded by barren rocks and frozen plains. The outpost had been built as a research and rescue hub for explorers traveling in deep space. Its walls were scratched from years of storms and dust, and its lights glowed softly against the endless dark. Inside, people moved slowly, life was calm, and yet, there was one secret that no one could explain. Tomo. The rescue dog lived in the corner of the repair bay. For 3 long years he had not looked at anyone. When he arrived, he had been found inside the wreck of a human ship that had crashed far from known routes. The ship was broken, twisted, and silent. No one had survived except for Tomo, who had somehow stayed alive in the cold, silent wreck. The humans had taken him to Outpost 7, hoping he would adjust to life among people. But Tomo did not adjust. He did not look at anyone. He did not respond when people called his name. He would sit in one corner, sometimes growling softly, sometimes whining in a low, quiet voice that no one could understand. He never played. He never ran. He did not even eat eagerly. Food was placed in front of him, and he would eat it slowly, keeping his eyes down. The people of the outpost tried many ways to gain his trust. They spoke gently, they offered treats, and they even built a special bed near the windows so he could see the stars. But Tomo remained silent. He did not understand them, or perhaps he did not want to. There was a sadness in his eyes that made even the strongest humans pause. Some of the researchers whispered that Tomo had seen something terrible inside the wrecked ship, something that no one could forget, but they did not know what it was. They only knew that Tomo had changed forever the day he arrived. The outpost was used to quiet days, but today was different. A small shuttle landed near the gates, and a new family stepped out. The shuttle carried Mira, a bright-eyed child of 7 years, and her parents. Mira was curious, lively, and brave. While her parents spoke to the commander, Mira noticed the repair bay. Her eyes fell on the corner where Tomo sat. She felt an instant connection. Something in her heart told her that this dog was special. Mira walked slowly toward Tomo. The adults behind her called her name, warning her to stay back, but Mira did not hear them. She walked past the rows of machines, past the busy engineers, and finally reached the corner where Tomo sat. He did not move. He did not even blink. His body was stiff, his tail tucked close. Mira knelt on the floor, keeping her hands on her knees. She looked at him with gentle eyes. She did not speak at first. She waited quietly. Tomo's blue eyes flicked toward her for a moment, and then away. The child smiled softly. She had no fear. She sensed that Tomo had been alone for a very long time. She sensed that he had been waiting for someone who would not hurt him. After a few minutes, Mira whispered a single word. It was soft, like a breeze through the frozen plains outside. The word was home. For the first time in 3 years, Tomo raised his head. His ears twitched. He stared at Mira with wide eyes. Everyone in the repair bay froze. No one had ever seen this. The dog that had avoided every human being, the dog that had not looked at anyone since the crash, was now staring at a child who had whispered only one word. Mira did not move. She repeated the word gently, slowly, as if telling a secret meant only for Tomo. The dog took a step forward, then another. His movements were careful, but deliberate. He sniffed the air near Mira and sat down, keeping his eyes locked on hers. A strange light seemed to shine from his eyes. It was not just curiosity. It was recognition, memory, and a deep longing that no human could fully understand. The adults watched in awe. Commander Raffi, a tall man with graying hair, stepped closer. "Do not touch him," he whispered to Mira. "He is different." Mira shook her head slightly. "He is not dangerous. He just needs someone to understand him." Tomo sniffed Mira's hand as she extended it slowly. He did not lick or bite. He only pressed his nose gently against her fingers. A low, soft sound came from his throat, almost like a sigh. The repair bay was silent, filled only with the sound of the humming machines and the faint wind blowing outside. Something inside Tomo had awakened. For 3 years, he had carried the weight of silence, of fear, and perhaps of loss. The memory of that day, long ago in the wrecked ship, had been locked inside him, and now, with a single word whispered by a small, brave child, that memory was stirring. The researchers looked at each other in amazement. They had studied Tomo for years, trying to understand his behavior. Some had even suggested that he be sent to another outpost. But now, it was clear. Tomo was not just a dog. He was a witness, a guardian, and perhaps the key to something no one yet understood. Mira smiled softly. "Do you remember?" she whispered again. "Do you remember home?" Tomo's tail gave a small, slow wag, then another. He stepped closer to Mira, circling her slowly. He sniffed the floor, the walls, and finally, he rested his head near her shoulder. Mira put her arm around him gently. He leaned into her, letting himself be comforted for the first time in years. The adults, including Commander Raffi, were silent. They had never seen such a bond form so quickly, especially with a dog like Tomo. Even the engineers, busy with their machines, paused to watch the child and the dog. Something extraordinary was happening. Mira whispered once more, softly, "It is okay, Tomo. You are not alone anymore." And for the first time in 3 years, Tomo did not look away. He looked at a human and saw not danger, not fear, but something else. He saw trust. He saw kindness. He saw home. Outside, the wind blew through the empty plains. The lights of distant stars flickered. But inside the repair bay of Outpost 7, a small miracle had happened. A silent dog had begun to speak, not with words, but with his heart. And a small child had shown that even in the vast emptiness of space, connection and hope could exist. The first day of their bond ended with Mira sitting quietly on the floor, Tomo resting his head on her lap. The rest of the outposts watched silently. No one moved. No one spoke. They all felt it. The presence of something extraordinary. A dog, once broken and silent, had finally begun to trust again. And in the quiet of the distant outpost, under the cold light of distant stars, life had changed forever. The next morning at Human Outpost 7 was quiet, yet there was a different energy in the air. Tomo, the silent dog, had not moved far from Myra's side since the night before. He stayed close, his head resting on her lap or beside her feet. The other humans in the outpost could not believe it. A dog that had refused to look at anyone for 3 years was now willing to stay beside a small child. Commander Rafi observed them quietly. He had seen many strange events in space, but nothing like this. Mira woke early, as children often do. She stretched and rubbed her eyes. She looked down at Tomo, who lifted his head to meet her gaze. His eyes, bright and alert, seemed to speak without words. Myra reached out and touched his fur gently. He leaned into her hand. It was a simple gesture, but for Tomo it carried years of trust and relief. "Good morning, Tomo," Myra whispered. She smiled, and the dog gave a soft, almost contented growl. Commander Rafi entered the room with a notebook in his hand. "I see he is cooperating," he said quietly. "This is unusual. After 3 years, no one has been able to reach him like this." Myra nodded. "I think he remembers something. Maybe that is why he listened to me yesterday." Rafi raised an eyebrow. "Remembers what?" Myra shrugged. "I do not know, but I think he knows something important, something about the ship he came from." The commander did not respond. He only watched. Tomo stood and circled Myra slowly, sniffing the floor and the air. His movements were cautious but deliberate. The dog's tail moved slightly. The soft motion was a small sign of excitement. Mira leaned down again. "Do you want to show me, Tomo?" she whispered. The dog stopped for a moment, as if listening. Then he moved toward the corner of the repair bay where an old panel was slightly open. Mira followed him. The panel had wires and lights inside. Tomo sniffed it and pressed his paw against a small button. The panel clicked and whirred. A faint blue light began to glow from inside the wall. Mira's eyes widened. She had never seen this before. Tomo pressed the button again with his nose. The blue light grew stronger, forming thin lines that floated in the air like threads of energy. The humans in the room stepped back. Even Commander Rafi looked surprised. The dog that had avoided humans for years was now activating something inside the outpost. "What is he doing?" asked one of the engineers. Rafi shook his head. "I do not know, but stay back." Mira watched Tomo closely. The dog sniffed the glowing lines and barked softly. The sound was low and almost musical. Myra felt a vibration in the air. She reached out to touch one of the glowing lines, and it responded. The line moved gently under her fingers, as if alive. Tomo barked again, louder this time. The glowing lines began to form shapes. Mira saw small holograms appearing in the air. They were images of the ship where Tomo had been found. The ship was broken and twisted, floating in space. Then the images changed. She saw strange creatures made of energy attacking the ship. Mira gasped. She stepped back. Tomo barked once more and pressed his nose against the panel. The hologram paused. It was clear that Tomo understood the images. He had lived through this event. He had seen these creatures before. "Those are the creatures he saw," Myra whispered. She looked at Tomo. "You were there. You protected someone. Is that why you did not trust anyone?" Tomo barked softly again and moved closer to Myra. The dog pressed his head against her hand. Mira felt warmth spread through her. Tomo's memory was waking up. Rafi stepped forward carefully. "This is incredible," he said. "He is showing us the ship and the attack. We never knew this part of the mission." Mira nodded. "He remembers everything. He is trying to tell us." The hologram continued to show the ship being attacked. The creatures were bright and fast, moving like liquid light. They had no faces or voices, but they were powerful. Mira noticed a small figure in the hologram, a child hiding near Tomo. The child looked at Tomo and whispered a single word: "Home." Myra's heart skipped a beat. The child in the memory had used the same word she had whispered yesterday. That word had unlocked Tomo's memory. That word had made him trust her. Tomo stepped back from the panel and barked again. This time the sound was urgent. Mira looked up. The lights outside the outpost flickered. The wind outside carried a strange hum. Something was moving in the sky. Rafi and the engineers rushed to the windows. Bright, glowing shapes appeared above the outpost. The energy creatures from the hologram were in the sky. They were real, and they were coming closer. Mira held Tomo's head in her hands. "Do not be afraid," she whispered. "We will help each other." Tomo growled softly, standing between Myra and the window. He was ready to protect her. The years of silence, fear, and memory had prepared him for this moment. He was not just a dog. He was a guardian. Raffi looked at Mira and Tomo. He knows these creatures, he said. He has seen them before. If he is acting like this now, it is because he can guide us. The engineers nodded and started checking the old signal towers around the outpost. These towers had been abandoned for years, but they could still transmit energy signals. If Tomo could guide them, they might be able to protect the outpost. Mira whispered to Tomo again. Show us what to do. Tomo barked softly and ran toward the outer gates. Mira followed him. The other humans rushed behind. The glowing creatures hovered above the frozen plains, moving closer to the outpost. Their shapes were beautiful and strange, but they carried an unknown power that could destroy anything in their path. Tomo reached the first signal tower. He pressed his paw against the control panel. The tower hummed and lit up. Lines of blue energy spread across the ground, connecting to the other towers. Myra helped him, following his lead. Together, they activated the entire network. The creatures above paused. They seemed to notice the change. Their bright forms flickered. Tomo barked again, and the towers pulsed with stronger light. The creatures hesitated, circling above the outpost. Mira looked at Tomo and smiled. You remembered, didn't you? She whispered. Tomo barked once more, firmly. He had remembered everything. He had survived, protected, and now he was leading humans to safety. The bond between the child and the dog had unlocked not only his memory but also a path to protect everyone at the outpost. Commander Raffi watched in silence. He had seen many things in his life, but nothing like this. A dog, silent for 3 years, had become the key to understanding the past and guiding the future. The sun rose over the distant mountains, reflecting light on the frozen plains. Tomo stood proudly beside Mira, ready for whatever would come next. The creatures in the sky were still there, but now humans were prepared. And for the first time in 3 years, Tomo was not alone. The whisper of a single word had changed everything. The glowing creatures hovered above human outpost 7. Their bright, shifting forms filled the sky with strange colors that reflected on the frozen plains below. Myra stood beside Tomo, holding his head gently. The dog's eyes were sharp and alert. He had seen these creatures before, in the memory of the ship that had crashed 3 years ago. Now, he understood what they wanted and how to guide the humans to protect themselves. Commander Raffi looked at the creatures and then at Tomo. He knows them, he said quietly. If Tomo acts like this, we have a chance. Follow his lead. Myra nodded and patted Tomo's side. We can do it together, she whispered. Tomo barked softly, a signal that the child understood. The bond between them was strong. For the first time, the humans saw the dog not only as a pet but as a guardian and guide. Tomo ran toward the far edge of the outpost. Myra followed. The creatures circled closer, their energy forms flickering in patterns that were almost like signals. The engineers hurried to follow, checking the old signal towers and activating panels. The towers had been abandoned for years, but they still worked. With Tomo's guidance, they could connect the towers into a network. The dog stopped at the second tower and pressed his paw against the control panel. A beam of blue light shot into the sky. The creatures paused. It was clear that they noticed the signal. Tomo barked again, and Myra helped him activate another tower. Soon lines of glowing energy stretched across the plains, connecting all the towers around the outpost. Look at that, one of the engineers said. The towers are forming a shield. Raffi nodded. Tomo knows how to control it. He has seen this before. He is showing us the way. Myra watched the glowing network. The energy lines pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Tomo barked once more, and the lights grew stronger. The creatures in the sky shifted their positions. They were curious, cautious, and perhaps confused. Doc Tomo turned to Mira. He pressed his head against her hand, then ran toward the repair bay. He barked urgently, and Myra followed. Inside, he sniffed the holographic projector that had shown the memory of the crashed ship. He pressed his nose against it. The projector flickered to life again. The images of the ship appeared, followed by the bright, dangerous creatures attacking it. Mira looked closely. She noticed details she had not seen before. The creatures were not just attacking, they were searching for something. The child on the ship in the memory held a small device. Tomo had protected the child with all his strength. Myra realized that the creatures might not be purely dangerous. They were looking for the same device. Tomo, they are searching for something, Myra said softly. The dog barked in agreement. He ran toward the supply room and returned with a small, metallic box. It was the same size and shape as the device in the hologram. Myra picked it up carefully. Raffi came closer. That device was part of the old research mission, he said. It holds energy records and coordinates for deep space. If the creatures get it, we do not know what could happen. Myra held the device tightly. We have to protect it. Tomo knows how. Tomo ran to the outer gates again. The creatures hovered above, shifting their energy forms and sending small pulses toward the ground. The humans could feel the vibrations in their bodies. It was powerful and strange, but the tower's energy lines were holding the pulses back. The shield was working. And it was all because of Tomo. The dog led Myra and the team toward the first tower. He pressed his paw against the panel again, sending a signal that extended the energy shield. The creatures in the sky hesitated. They seemed to recognize that humans were no longer defenseless. Tomo barked again, commanding the humans to activate the remaining towers. By now, the entire outpost was working together. Engineers and guards moved quickly under Tomo's guidance. The towers glowed brightly, forming a protective network that surrounded the base. The creatures moved closer, but the shield held strong. The energy lines pulsed, forming patterns that reflected Tomo's memory of the ship. He remembered exactly how the creatures had attacked and how the humans had survived. Myra followed Tomo closely. "We are ready," she whispered. "We are ready because you showed us the way," Tomo barked, then ran toward the hill overlooking the outpost. From there he could see the creatures clearly. He lifted his head and let out a long, strong bark. The creatures stopped and hovered above. For a moment, there was silence. The energy lines of the towers glowed brighter than ever. Tomo's collar, which had been quiet for years, emitted a soft, blue light. The holographic projector flickered again. Images of the ship appeared once more. This time, the child's face was clearer. The child had whispered the word home before the attack. Tomo had remembered that word. Mira repeated it softly. Home. Tomo's eyes glowed. The energy lines responded. The creatures above shifted their forms. They moved slowly now, almost as if they were listening. Myra realized something incredible. The creatures were not simply attacking, they were responding to signals and emotions. Tomo's memory and the child's word had created a connection. Raffi watched silently. "He is communicating with them," he said. "He understands them better than we ever could." Mira nodded. "He knows they are not entirely dangerous. They just need something. We have to show them we can help." Tomo barked again, then ran toward the device Mira held. He nudged it gently with his nose. Mira placed the device on a small platform in the center of the energy network. The tower's lines pulsed in response. A soft hum filled the air. The creatures above seemed to sense the change. Their energy forms shimmered and became calmer. The humans watched in awe. A dog, silent for 3 years, had become the guide that could communicate with creatures from another world. Mira hugged Tomo tightly. "You remembered everything," she whispered. "And now, you are helping everyone." The creatures hovered above, their forms glowing softly. They moved in patterns that seemed like dancing lights. Tomo stood proudly beside Mira, his tail wagging slowly. The child in him, the memory of the ship, and the word home had unlocked his courage and understanding. Raffi nodded to the team. "We must prepare. The creatures are not attacking anymore, but we do not fully understand them. We follow Tomo and see what they want. He is our guide." The day ended with the outpost safe for now. The glowing towers formed a protective shield that held the creatures above them. Myra and Tomo sat together, watching the energy dance in the sky. The bond between them had grown stronger. The dog that had refused to look at anyone for 3 years was now the key to understanding a new and hidden enemy. Tomo had remembered. He had survived, and he was ready to lead humans through the unknown, teaching them that even in the vast emptiness of space, courage, trust, and memory could create hope and strength. The adventure was far from over. The creatures above were still there, and the mysteries of the ship, the device, and the hidden enemy were only beginning to unfold. But for the first time in 3 years, Tomo was not alone, and Mira had found a friend and protector who could face anything by her side. The night at Human Outpost 7 was filled with quiet energy. The glowing creatures hovered above the plains, their strange, slowing shapes illuminating the snow and ice with soft colors. Myra sat beside Tomo near the central energy platform. The dog's eyes glowed faintly blue, reflecting the lines of the towers. His tail wagged slowly, showing calm and focus. The bond between Myra and Tomo had grown stronger. She could feel his courage and intelligence guiding her every movement. Commander Raffi gathered the team in the control room. Engineers, guards, and scientists moved quickly, preparing the outpost for what might come next. The glowing creatures had stopped attacking, but no one fully understood their intentions. Tomo had led them to the energy network and helped stabilize the shield, but there was still uncertainty. Raffi looked at Mira. "You and Tomo have shown us that the creatures can respond to guidance. They are not purely hostile. We need to stay calm and follow the dog's lead." Mira nodded. "Tomo knows what happened before. He remembers the ship and the child. We just have to trust him." Tomo stood near the control panels, pressing his nose lightly against each interface. The energy lines from the towers pulsed with his memory. The creatures above moved slowly, circling in patterns that mirrored the dog's movements. It was clear that Tomo had established a form of communication with them. Using energy signals rather than words, Raffi gave orders to the engineers. "Monitor the energy network. Make sure the lines stay strong. Any weakness and the creatures could become dangerous again. Follow Tomo's guidance exactly." The team worked with precision. The glowing towers responded to the dog's movements and the energy pulses from his collar. Mira followed Tomo closely, placing her hands near the control panels when he indicated. The dog's memory of the ship and the past attack was guiding the humans in real time. As the night grew darker, the creatures above became more active. Their shapes shifted faster, forming arcs of light that stretched across the sky. Tomo barked softly, and the tower's energy lines brightened. The dog ran toward the outer gate and then back to the central platform, pressing the panels in a specific order. Mira followed each movement, learning to anticipate his actions. Raffi watched the sequence unfold. He is creating a defensive pattern. It is similar to what happened on the ship before it crashed. Tomo remembers the exact positions and movements that kept everyone safe. If we follow him, we can survive anything. Suddenly, the creatures above sent a strong pulse toward the outpost. The energy lines shivered, but the shield held firm. Tomo barked loudly, then ran along the towers, pressing the control panels to strengthen the network. Myra followed him, repeating the actions carefully. The pulse faded, and the creatures hovered, their energy forms dimming slightly. Myra whispered to Tomo, "We are doing it. We are protecting everyone." The dog barked once, firmly. His memory was clear, and he was guiding humans as he had guided the child in the past. The team began to understand that the glowing creatures were not enemies in the way they had feared. They were intelligent, powerful, and responsive. They were searching for something, and Tomo had remembered how to respond to them. Raffi spoke to the team, "Prepare to engage with the creatures. We do not attack, but we show them our strength and readiness. Tomo will lead us." Tomo ran toward the energy platform, pressing the panels to activate a stronger pulse. The glowing lines expanded outward, creating a protective dome around the outpost. The creatures circled above, their movements slower and more deliberate. Myra stayed close, repeating the word home softly. The creatures seemed to respond to the energy in the word, their light patterns calming as they hovered over the shield. The engineers adjusted the towers to follow Tomo's pattern. Every time he barked or pressed a panel, the shield responded. Mira learned to anticipate his actions, helping him stabilize the network. The creature's movements mirrored the pulses from the towers. It was as if the dog had taught the humans how to dance with them in the sky. The night grew colder, and the wind carried sharp, icy gusts. The outpost was safe within the shield, but the humans knew they could not remain passive forever. The creatures were still searching, and the energy device Myra held was the key. If they could protect it, they could prevent any future danger. Tomo barked, signaling that it was time to act. Myra held the device carefully and followed him to the center of the energy network. The dog pressed his nose against the device, and the towers responded with a strong, synchronized pulse. The glowing creatures paused, hovering directly above the device. Their energy forms shimmered as if examining it. Myra whispered softly, "We are not here to hurt you. We are here to protect and understand." Tomo barked once, affirming her words. The creatures above shifted their energy, becoming calmer. The humans watched in awe. The dog that had avoided everyone for 3 years was now the key to understanding and protecting both humans and the unknown creatures. Raffi spoke to the team. "We follow the dog. He knows what happened and what we need to do. This is our chance to establish trust." The engineers monitored the towers while Mira and Tomo moved between the panels, guiding the pulses. The creatures above adjusted their positions in response. It was clear that Tomo's memory of the ship and the past events allowed him to communicate through the energy network. Humans and the creatures were now interacting through the dog. Hours passed, and the night deepened. The creatures hovered above, observing the humans and the dog. Tomo continued to guide the team, barking and pressing the panels in precise order. Myra stayed close, whispering words of comfort and repeating the word home. Each time she spoke, the creature's energy seemed to calm further, showing a growing understanding. Commander Raffi spoke quietly to Myra. "You and Tomo are extraordinary. He trusts you completely, and through you, the team can respond. You are helping everyone survive this night." Mira smiled. "He is not alone anymore, and neither are we." As dawn approached, the glowing creatures began to shift away from the outpost, hovering at the edge of the shield. The energy lines from the towers pulsed gently, maintaining protection. Tomo sat beside Mira, his tail wagging slowly. The bond between them had allowed humans to face a threat they could not understand alone. The creatures circled one last time and then slowly rose higher, their glowing forms moving away from the outpost. Tomo barked softly, signaling the humans to stay alert. Myra hugged him tightly. "You did it. You kept us safe." Raffi addressed the team. "This is a new beginning. The creatures are still out there, but we have learned something important. We have learned that trust, courage, and guidance can protect us in ways we never imagined." The outpost settled into calm again. The glowing towers hummed softly, maintaining the energy shield. Myra sat beside Tomo, holding his head gently. The dog had become more than a companion. He was a teacher, a guardian, and a bridge between humans and the unknown. Tomo rested his head on Myra's lap, eyes glowing softly. The dog that had been silent for 3 years had finally found purpose and trust. Myra whispered the word home once more. Tomo barked softly, a sound of agreement and peace. The humans of Outpost 7 had stood together, guided by a dog and a small child. They had faced the unknown and learned that courage, memory, and trust could overcome fear. The night had tested them, But with Tomo leading the way, they had survived, and as the sun rose over the frozen plains, the outpost was alive with a new sense of hope. Humans and the silent dog had shown that even in the vast, empty spaces of the galaxy, bravery, kindness, and connection could change everything. The next challenge was still ahead. The creatures were still out there, and the mysteries of the ship, the device, and the hidden enemy were far from solved. But humans were no longer alone, and neither was Tomo. Together they were ready for whatever came next. The morning sun rose over the frozen plains surrounding Human Outpost 7. The air was crisp, and the snow glittered like tiny crystals under the light of distant stars. Mira stood beside Tomo near the central energy platform. The glowing dog had been silent for 3 years, but now his eyes shone with understanding, courage, and a quiet pride. He had led the humans through the night, and had shown them a new way to communicate with the unknown creatures above. The glowing creatures hovered at the edge of the outpost's energy shield. Their forms were bright and soft, moving in patterns that suggested curiosity rather than hostility. Tomo stood alert, barking softly to guide the humans. Mira held the energy device in her hands. She had learned its importance from the dog's memory and from the holographic images of the crashed ship. The device contained information that could help both humans and creatures understand each other better. Commander Raffi addressed the team. "We have survived the night. We have stabilized the shield, and the creatures have not attacked. Now, we must try to understand their intentions. Tomo will guide us." The engineers adjusted the towers, strengthening the energy network. Every movement of Tomo and every pulse from his collar synchronized with the towers. The creatures in the sky shifted their forms, responding to the dog's guidance. It was as if Tomo was speaking to them in a language humans could not hear, but could understand through the energy lines. Myra stepped forward. "Tomo, show them we are friends," she whispered. The dog barked softly and ran to the first tower. He pressed his paw against the control panel, sending a strong pulse of blue energy into the sky. The creatures paused. They hovered closer, moving in slow, careful circles above the outpost. Raffi watched closely. "They are listening. Tomo is communicating. He is showing them that we are not dangerous." Mira held the device carefully and stepped to the center of the energy network. Tomo pressed his nose against it. The towers responded, sending pulses of energy in patterns that mirrored the glowing forms of the creatures. Mira whispered the word home once more. The creatures tilted and shimmered in response. Slowly, one of the creatures descended closer to the device. Its energy was bright but gentle. Mira and Tomo stepped back slightly, allowing it to hover above the platform. The creature's light shifted, forming shapes that resembled wings and a face. It was not human, but there was intelligence in its movements. Tomo barked softly, circling the device and the creature. He was showing it that the humans and the dog were working together. The creature pulsed gently, sending energy lines toward the towers. Mira realized it was responding to the energy network. It wanted communication, not conflict. Raffi turned to the team. "Prepare to observe. Do not interfere unless necessary. Let Tomo guide the interaction." The engineers and guards stood quietly, watching as Tomo circled the device and the creature. His collar glowed brighter with each movement, sending signals that the humans could feel in the air. Myra whispered home again, and the creature's energy shimmered in response. It was as if the word carried meaning across space, carrying the memory and trust that had guided Tomo for years. Other creatures hovered closer, drawn by the energy signals. They moved in careful patterns, forming a circle above the outpost. Their shapes were beautiful and strange, glowing like living stars. Tomo barked and ran along the platform, guiding the pulses of energy through the towers. Myra followed him, moving with the dog and the device, showing that humans could respond to the creature's signals. Slowly, the creatures began to shift their forms. Their light became softer, their movements more deliberate. They circled above the outpost without aggression. Tomo barked once more and nudged the device gently. Mira held it steady. The tower's energy lines pulsed, forming patterns that the creatures seemed to understand. One of the creatures descended to hover directly above Tomo. Its light spread across him, yet he did not flinch. He barked softly and nudged the device again. Mira watched as the creature's energy connected to the towers. She realized that they were not attacking because Tomo had shown them that humans and dogs could work together to protect the device and maintain peace. Raffi spoke quietly. "He is doing it. He is showing them that we are not a threat. That is why they are not attacking." Mira smiled at Tomo. "You remembered everything, didn't you? You remembered the ship, the child, and what to do. And now, you are teaching them." Tomo barked softly and circled the creature again. The other creatures moved closer, forming patterns that mirrored the energy pulses of the towers. Mira held the device steady, repeating the word home. Each time she said it, the creature's energy became brighter and calmer. It was as if the word carried meaning beyond language, connecting memories and trust across time and space. The interaction continued for hours. Tomo guided the humans. The creatures responded, and Mira held the device with care. The energy network pulsed in harmony with the dog and the creatures. Slowly, the humans began to understand that the creatures were not enemies. They were intelligent beings searching for understanding, not destruction. Finally, one of the creatures extended a stream of energy directly to the device. Mira held it steady, and the energy flowed through the towers. It formed patterns that the humans could see, almost like writing in the air. Tomo barked in approval, circling the device. The creature's energy became steady and calm. Rafi turned to the team. They are showing us their intention. They want cooperation, not conflict. Tomo made this possible. Myra knelt beside the dog. You did it, Tomo. You remembered, and you guided everyone. You helped us understand them. The creatures hovered above the outpost, their glowing forms soft and calm. The energy device pulsed gently in Mira's hands. Tomo lay beside her, eyes glowing faintly, showing peace and trust. Humans and creatures had reached a new understanding. Rafi addressed the team. This is a new beginning. We have learned that courage, memory, and trust can bridge gaps even across species and worlds. Tomo has shown us how to communicate and protect ourselves without conflict. The creatures slowly ascended, moving away from the outpost. Their energy shimmered in the morning light. They circled one last time above the towers, then departed toward the distant horizon. Tomo watched them go, tail wagging slowly. He had protected Myra, the outpost, and the device. He had remembered the past, guided humans, and created a bridge between worlds. Myra hugged him tightly. We are not alone anymore. Tomo, you helped everyone understand. You are our hero. Tomo barked softly in agreement and rested his head on Mira's lap. The dog that had been silent for 3 years had found trust, courage, and purpose. Myra had shown him kindness, and together, they had changed everything. The humans of Outpost 7 stood outside, watching the sky and the retreating creatures. They had survived a threat they could not fully understand. They had learned to trust a dog, to work with a child, and to see courage in unexpected places. Rafi smiled at Mira. You and Tomo have taught us something very important. Trust, kindness, and guidance can overcome fear. We will never forget this night. Mira smiled back. We will always remember. And Tomo will always be our friend. As the sun rose higher over the frozen plains, the outpost settled into a new rhythm. The energy towers hummed softly, maintaining protection, but the immediate threat was gone. Humans, a dog, and the creatures of energy had created a moment of understanding that would last forever. Tomo lifted his head, looking at the horizon. Mira stood beside him, holding his paw gently. The adventure was far from over, but they had achieved something remarkable. They had turned fear into understanding and silence into communication. The dog, that had refused to look at anyone for 3 years, had now led humans to safety, helped communicate with unknown creatures, and protected the outpost. The small child who had whispered one word had unlocked the memory and courage of a guardian. Together, they had changed the fate of everyone at Outpost 7, and as the morning light touched the snow and the towers hummed quietly, humans and Tomo knew that even in the vast emptiness of space, hope, courage, and trust could create connections that nothing could break. The outpost was safe, the creatures were calm, and the bond between Myra and Tomo would guide the humans for years to come. Everything had changed, and for the better.